Hi everybody, welcome back to Darlingbrough Model Railway. I'm Richard. Now they say that there are many ways to skin a cat. I prefer using scissors. Only kidding, I'm not actually into animal cruelty. But I do agree with the saying, especially when it comes to model railways, or in particular, scenery building in general. That's why today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create not one, but two small pieces of scenery using different techniques and compare the results. So just to give you an idea of what I'm planning, I've drawn some rough sketches to show you what I'm planning on building. The idea is I'm going to build a small hill with a rock face on one side. It's a fairly simple design, but it allows me to show you multiple different techniques on how this can be produced. Now for this diorama I'm just going to be using some 3mm chipboard for the base. Now what I've done is I've just marked off roughly about 8 inches or 20 centimetres and just scored a line. This is really rough, it doesn't really matter about exact sizes for this particular piece. Just to make the shapes a little bit more natural, I've just trimmed off the corners using my jigsaw. Again, very rough and ready, it doesn't really matter at this stage or for this piece of diorama. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is to actually build up the shape of the hill. Now on this side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create it using cardboard, and on this side I'm going to create the hill using polystyrene, so you can get an indication of the difference in techniques. So in order to build up the polystyrene hill, it's actually quite simple. You only need a couple of materials and a couple of tools. Some sheets of polystyrene, a craft knife and some glue. Use the wooden base as a template and use your craft knife to cut the same shape into the polystyrene. Repeat this with several layers of polystyrene to allow you to build up the height you require. Don't worry if you don't get the layers perfectly aligned at this stage, it is very rough. This is just to give you the basic bulk shape. Any rough edges will be smoothed out at a later stage. This method is also appropriate to use when you're building terrain pieces for tabletop gaming. You can use multiple layers to create a stacked effect. This might be good for creating stairs, platforms, or multiple levels which can be used as playing surfaces. In addition, these pieces remain very lightweight because of the materials. Now when it comes to sticking the layers together, you have got several options available when it comes to adhesives. Obviously PVA is ideal. It gives you enough working time to get the layers lined up properly and it doesn't eat away at the polystyrene. The only downside is it may take longer to dry, so if you are working on a model and you need to build it quickly, it might not be the best option. Another option that I've personally used in the past is a hot glue gun. This is a really good way of sticking layers together really quickly. The only downside is that the glue tends to dry rather quickly, so it doesn't give you much working time. Also, it may melt the polystyrene slightly. There are other specialty adhesives available as well, especially ones that will work with a hot wire cutter if you choose to do so. However, avoid any adhesives that disintegrate foam. Okay, so I've left it to dry overnight. I did need to put a little bit of weight on top of the model just to kind of keep it flat and level while it dried, which is obviously something to just prevent the wood from warping really. And as you can see, it works really well. And we can continue on shaping the hill and making the space where the rocks are going to go. So on this one it's quite simple. All I need to do is basically get a knife and start trimming it away. What you want to do is to shape the polystyrene into the rough shape of the hill that you're wishing to produce. For this I've just used a craft knife, although there are other ways available. You may use a larger knife such as a large kitchen knife, or even a hot wire cutter. Whatever method works for you. The only downside to working with polystyrene is it is very messy. However, as you shave pieces off, don't throw them away initially. They may be useful if you want to stick additional pieces back on. When it comes to making a hill out of cardboard, what you'll need to do is draw the rough shape of the hill onto a piece of cardboard. Cut this out using either a craft knife, sharp knife, or a pair of scissors. You can then use this to create another template on some more pieces of card and cut them out as well. What you should end up with is several pieces of card that are roughly the same shape and size. These are going to form the main structure of your hill. You will also need to create some cross brace pieces as well. These cross brace pieces will need to be at the same height as the rest of your hill. For mine, I need to create cross braces here, 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 and here. What you'll want to do is create a 3D structure using the 2D pieces of card. The best way to do this is to create a lattice. Simply cut strips into the cross braces and then strips from the bottom of your side pieces as well. You can then slide these together to create a 3D structure. Continue this for the rest of the pieces. One thing I realised is because I wanted the hill to taper down on the sides, I've had to make the outside pieces shorter. All I've had to do is just trim the pieces down and retrim the slots so that they'll fit together. To stick it all together and make sure it's all nice and solid, the best way is to use a hot glue gun for this. The hot glue dries almost instantly and it gives you a very solid structure to work with. Don't worry about it looking neat at this stage because everything will be covered up. Once you have used a hot glue to stick the cardboard strips together, you can then attach it to the base. Once you have finished building the cardboard underlying structure, you will need to cover it. For this, I decided to go old school and use old-fashioned paper mache. I used some wallpaper paste and some water. This was mixed together until I had a thick paste. I then took sheets of toilet roll and dipped them into the paste. I placed this over the top of the cardboard struts. You will have to build up several layers of the paper mache in order to get the shape that you would desire. It might take a little while to dry, so what I would recommend is do this when you know that you will have a large gap of time to allow it to dry. I will be leaving this in the shed overnight and hopefully the shed will warm up tomorrow during the day when I will be busy. What I've found is that it can be quite difficult to get rid of some of the texture because of the toilet roll that I'm actually using. In hindsight, I feel that toilet roll was probably not the best choice of materials. I would recommend using paper instead. So if we compare both of these models at this stage, despite being built using completely different techniques, they're actually quite similar. They have a similar shape and a similar size. It would be interesting to know what your thoughts on these models are. Do you have a preference to which of these techniques that you would use if you were building something similar? Or perhaps you have your own technique that I'd be interested in hearing as well. By all means, please leave me a comment, send me a message, drop me an email. All the contact details are up there. I will be continuing next week. I will be talking about adding the rocks, painting techniques, and also adding flocks and textures and grasses and that sort of thing to finalise the model. So if you are interested in finding out how these models compare against each other using completely different techniques, don't forget, like and subscribe, and in the meantime watch out for these videos, and I'll see you again next week.